Some people in this world are on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil, and some, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel.
And I'm Nicole Crowell. You may have heard us as we worked on stories and series about law enforcement and crime. And it's safe to say we've seen some of the best and worst of human nature.
We decided there's no greater honor than bringing you the stories of the men and women who seek out the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who put the pieces together on some of the biggest Mississippi crime stories of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Investigation Homicide. I am Therese Apel, and we are here tonight with a story that you may have heard. It's fairly recent, but first, let me introduce my co-host, Amanda Johansson.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
So how's your week gone?
It has been strangely, slow. Just like the hours have just been really long.
Don't use the Q word.
Yeah, well, business isn't slow. Just
Sure.
time seems to be standing still.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that kind of week, too. Tonight, we will be talking to someone who I have known for many years, Sheriff Ryan Everett from Lawrence County, and we met back in Lincoln County at some point. I don't even remember. It's been so long.
Long time ago. You were still the Daily Leader.
Yeah. I was working for the local weekly newspaper down there. So when we met, you were just a regular deputy
I was.
at Lincoln County. Tell us about your career. How'd you get from there to being sheriff of Lawrence County?
Well, we started in Lawrence County 2002. Started part-time, went full-time a year or two later. Went through the training academy, got stuck in Wesson for a little while, went back to Lawrence County. In 2015, I ran for constable. The sheriff that I was working for at the time had gotten beat, and the incoming sheriff decided he wasn't going to keep me. Later on, he brought me back on board, and whenever Sheriff Timms had passed away, he'd asked me, he said, they tell me you're going to run against me. And at the time, I hadn't planned on running against him, and I said, well, let me just put it to you like this. If you keep doing what you're doing right now, no, I won't have a reason to. I'll still be your investigator. I'll run for constable, but I will not run against you as long as you're doing right. And I said, but if you get to where you're starting to let people that have no idea what this game's all about start getting in your head, I promise you, I'll be running. And whenever it happened, ultimately, just like I predicted it would. And when he found out that I was serious about it was time for Ryan to go. So Sheriff Rushing, he hired me, and we stayed there a year and a half, roughly, throughout the entire campaign. I believe, as a matter of fact, the day after I got elected, November, I guess probably 6th, you came down and you did an interview with me.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Well, so one thing that I know about Lawrence County is that I've never worked a seriously routine type. I mean, it's okay, I have probably worked some routine homicides, but you guys have some that really stick out.
We,
there have been quite a few that were noteworthy.
Can you use the word humdinger on here? We have some real humdingers
Yes.
down there.
Yeah.
There's, out of my time in Lawrence County, there for a long time it would be a period of 3 or 4 years you wouldn't have one, then you would have two, then you may be 3 or 4 years you not have any, then you have one a year, then you have 3 or 4 within 6 or 8 months.
Right.
And I mean, none of them even have the same MO.
Right. Well, and so we're here to talk about one that really had a lot of people talking. A pastor named Greg Varnado had gone missing in Lawrence County. And it was one that, of course, we covered at Dark Horse Press. People were covering it around the state because you just generally, it's not usual that a full-grown man just disappears. So do you remember the day that case started?
I believe it may have been a year ago today or a year ago tomorrow. It was around this time of the year, middle of the month, and it drug out for 2 or 3 weeks.
Walk us through that first day.
One of the patrol sergeants called me. It was about 1:45 in the morning, and he said, "Look, I just wanted to give you a heads up. We've got a lady that has come down to the sheriff's office to file a missing persons report." I said, "Okay, give me the scoop on it." He said, "You know her. I think you went to school with her brother." He told me who it was. I said, "Yeah, I know the entire family. I know right where they live." Her husband left today around 2:00 and never came home. I said, what's his name? And he told me Gregory Varnado. I said, okay. I said, well, what all have you done? Do you have a vehicle on the NC? I said, no, I don't have a vehicle on the NC. I said, well, why not? Well, she can't give me the VIN number. She can't give me the tag number. I said, well, tell her to go home. Check and see if she's got a proof of insurance. That's going to have your VIN number on it. Bring it back to us. So she showed up roughly 12 hours later. Now, in the meantime, he did have dispatch put out a boatload of all surrounding agencies, gave the description, Mr. Varnado gave a description of the vehicle. It was a 2020 Chevrolet Cruze. And at one time, I could have given you the tag number right off the top of my head, just like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, we didn't have any of that right off the bat. She got his phone number. Immediately the next day, the investigator that it was assigned to, he contacts OnStar and he tries to do an exigent circumstances phone ping. Well, the phone's been turned off. And when I say turned off, I'm not talking about I don't want to talk to anybody and hit the power button. I'm talking about the bill hadn't been paid on it.
Oh.
So we contacted her, said, is there any way that you can get this bill caught up and maybe, just maybe, he'll cut the phone on and we'll try to ping his location that way. So she gets on Facebook. This is one of the first red flags to us. And I can't remember it verbatim. I've got it all in the case file, but the post that she posted made it look like law enforcement was trying to charge her money to ping the phone.
Oh, wow.
So there we go with that. Well, and in the meantime, the family starts calling. Well, y'all need to get a silver alert or amber alerts. Well, this amber alert's not even going to qualify. I said, we've tried the silver alert, but unfortunately, MBI's got certain criteria, and he doesn't meet the criteria. I believe it was Sunday. I was at church, and I got a text message, and it was from Mr. Varnado's brother-in-law. And he sent me a message, and it was almost verbatim of what you see on the bottom of the silver alerts. This individual is known to suffer from a medical condition that may impair his judgment-making abilities. Well, he told me that. That was the first I'd heard of it. The wife said everything was fine, but we contacted MBI again. They went ahead and they did the silver alert at that point. So there we had that. So the following Monday, we wind up going out to the Varnado residence, which is the house where the wife was raised. She was living there with her husband and her mother. Her father passed away a couple of years ago. And most everybody on that little strip, it's a dead-end road, most everybody on that strip's family. We went in, we talked, and I'm like, well, tell me a little bit about him. I mean, right now, I hate we're doing all we can, and I know we're not moving fast enough for you, but it's not technically illegal to be a missing person. I mean, if you're over the age of 18 years old, you can disappear at any time you want to, and you don't have to tell anybody anything. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell your parents. You don't have to tell your children. You don't have to tell your spouse, girlfriend, significant other, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to tell your doctor. You don't have to take your medication. So we go through that whole thing. And got to the part about medication, and I asked her, I said, where's the medication at? Well, I think he took it all with him. I said, okay. What all is he taking? And she starts listing medication. I said, just go see what you can find in the house, see if he left anything behind. And she comes back out with a pill bottle. I think it was metformin. Don't hold me to it, but it is an insulin pill is what it is, and it was filled in July, and there was very little missing out of it. Now, that's very important because later on, I would contact the bank, and I would ask about, is there any activity on this account? No. That's also something else that's important later because when we got her down to the sheriff's office and got her in the hot seat and we were going through the interview, it had already gotten back to us. And I think she even put it on social media that we had the account locked.
Oh, wow.
What it was a joint account. I had checked on that, but she didn't have the banking account card. And she didn't realize that you could just pull up to the drive-through window or walk in and see the teller. She thought you had to get it all out of the ATM, according to her. So it was a lot easier to make it out like, well, the police have had the account locked. But there was absolutely no activity on that account.
Sure.
So later, I got the bank accounts subpoenaed. I put in a telephone call to his doctor. I said, I know that he just got hired with the town of Monticello. That's something else we'll get to here in a minute, because that was something that was really brought up and driven home in this case, was his employment with the town. I said, this is really important. Now, if the man's missing, we need to be looking for him. We need to be looking under every bridge. We need to be searching every alleyway. We need everybody in every county and every city next to us to do the same. I said, but if he's just wanting to take him a couple of days away from the house and away from work, that's a little bit different. I realized that he was in there for a physical a couple of months ago when he was hired by the town. What can you tell me? I already know he's on diabetic medication. All that's protected by HIPAA. I said, I got you. So I called the investigator with the DA's office. Need a subpoena. This is what I want. This is where I need you to send it to. Find out that he has been put on the insulin pen as well. That's very important, because later when we would subpoena the pharmacy, we discovered that he never went and picked that insulin pen up.
Gotcha.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm gonna leave that right there for right now.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, we had contacted MBI, and we had them check the LPR, the license plate reader cameras throughout the state for the tag on the car. There was a couple of times prior, I think about 4 or 5 times prior to the day he went missing in Brookhaven. There was one in Crystal Springs the morning of, but she talked to him. She was actually in the car at that time going to a doctor's appointment, her and her mother. She talked to him after she got out of the doctor's appointment. Now, where the story really starts getting kind of twisted and mangled is, she would tell us that he left the house around 3 o'clock to go to City Hall to talk to the then mayor about his employment. However, after talking with the mayor, talking with different people in the public works, talking with the former assistant police chief at that time, that was well before 3 o'clock, and he was not in a blue car. He was in a red Chevy Impala.
Oh, wow.
So now, in her original statement, she said that he left the house around 2 o'clock, which is, I realize a lot of time, unless people are looking at their watch, they get their times. It's one thing to deviate 15, 20 minutes, but when you're telling everybody 3 o'clock, but you put on paper 2 o'clock, that does present a problem. So, y'all,
At this point, are you looking at her like maybe she knows more about it than she is telling you?
Absolutely. We got her in for a polygraph with MBI, and she didn't make an A+. She made an F- on it.
Wow.
Unfortunately, polygraph can't be used in court.
Sure.
It's just a tool. Now, this story, if I seem like I'm doing a lot of skipping around, it's because for 2.5 solid weeks, I did a whole lot of skipping around on it.
You said that this was something that was a very long 2 weeks of your life.
It
during
was
this
a
part.
nightmare. It was a nightmare. So, over the years, I've learned that you can't investigate it with the same technique, but you handle it the same way. A missing person, a homicide, and a burglary, you handle it the same way. You get right on top of it as soon as you get the report of it, and you don't hold anything back. You go all out. We had been working a homicide that at this particular point, we're still working on it. We had to totally put it on pause for the Varnado case. After he was located, we did go back on the homicide, and we're, like I said, we're still working on that homicide. That'd be another story for another night. But anyway, so help refresh my memory here. Where were we at?
So you were saying that he had been up there to
Okay. He
Yeah.
had been up there. The wife and the mother-in-law went to the city barn, and they all told us that, well, we hadn't seen him since he left way earlier. So talking to his supervisor decided, well, he wants to work how he wants to work, and he doesn't want to work how the mayor wants him to work and how I need him to work. So he's just not going to be able to work for me. So he tells him, look, go take an early lunch, meet me back at City Hall around 1. So she wasn't even back from the doctor yet.
Sure.
And he went to City Hall again. I'm going to repeat this, in a red Chevy Impala.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor had said that she really liked him and she didn't want to see him go, so she had talked to somebody else over another department and said, is there any way, instead of us terminating him, can we just transfer him over there and let him work under you? And he said, no, absolutely not. We've already tried that once. I don't know if he doesn't understand that the boss is the boss and you got to do it the boss's way, as long as it's not immorally, legal, or unethical. But he's just not a good match for us. And this would be little stuff like driving down the road with the limbs hanging off the back of the city truck, or taking the guard off the weed eater. And it's just simple stuff. Nothing serious. No behavioral problems. Just little crazy, just little bit of stuff. Nitpicky stuff, But I can understand why they want it that way. They wanted a guard on it, so they didn't have to replace somebody's windshield.
Yeah,
I
mean, it's definitely a safety thing. So it seemed like he wasn't following safety concerns within the employment, maybe because it was probably just easier to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went through all that, and we interviewed this one, we interviewed that one. I think there was about 4 or 5 people from the town that we interviewed and got statements from. I can't tell you how many times we met with the family. Good people. You wanted to be able to tell them something, give them some information, and they would get some information and bring it back to you. But a lot of the information that they were getting was coming from the wife, and the wife was getting information from somebody else, which is going to be another story in itself. But there was a church down in Macomb that she and Greg Varnado were attending that was based off of what I've gotten. There's a lot more to it than it just being a church. I think one of the people that was, I don't think it was, and it's not gossip if it's true, but one of the guys that had, he was actually advertising as being the pastor. He was indicted for some crimes against children down in Macomb a year or so before. I'll tell you, one of the ones that we wound up interviewing was when they had that pursuit. And I can't remember if it was Macomb Police or the Pike County Sheriff's Office. They had that pursuit that wound up going over into Amite County, and the young man that was driving, I think it was, maybe it was over a phone charge or can of paint or something. I can't remember. Anyway, the pursuit killed that guy, and they put him in jail in Pike County. He had some affiliations with that church, and he knew Greg Varnado, and he knew the other guy that I was talking about, the pastor. Not everybody that represents himself as a man of the cloth is a man of the cloth. But anyway, we went down there, we interviewed him. We dumped his phone. We'd actually gotten information from a lady that he had contacted her and said, well, I know what happened to him. I know where he is at, and they're going to find him sitting up underneath a bridge in his car dead.
That's strangely
very strange.
Strangely accurate information.
Specific, yeah.
And
specific.
a lot of the times the truth is much stranger than fiction. The only thing was he wasn't underneath the bridge when we found him. So
now tell us how you did find him at this point.
It was a Sunday. I believe it was September the 1st. Now, don't hold any misrepresentations of the date against me. I've got it all documented. We can hash that out later if we need to, but It was a Sunday. We'd come in from church, and I was sitting on the couch watching TV, just about to doze off from a Sunday afternoon nap. And the phone rings, and it's a local property owner. I've known him my entire life. And he says, Sheriff, I'll be honest with you, I started not to answer the phone. Sheriff, I said, yes, sir. How are you? He said, I'm not doing too good. I said, what's wrong? He said, you know, my granddaughter come up here from the coast. His wife had recently passed. They're wanting to build a house up here. I said, okay. They found a burnt out shell of a car over on some of the property next to mine. I said, meet me over there. I'm on my way. He told me exactly where it was at. And he's got a lot of property. I don't know exactly how much land he's got, but he's got several buildings there in town, several rental houses, this, that, and other.
Sure.
So anyway, we got over there, and sure enough, it was the car. And he was in the car, and the car had been burned. So I gathered all my troops. NBI had been helping us with it. I had notified the FBI. They came down and they looked over everything that we did. And they said, I don't know what you can expect us to do with it. At this point, it's not even a criminal offense. I said, I know that. I said, but if y'all got any suggestions you can throw out there, I really want to find this guy, dead or alive. At this point, I want to find him. So there's nothing else that you can do that you haven't already done. I mean, you're at the point now where you're playing the waiting game. I said, okay. I said, I just wanted to make sure that we had a mutual understanding on that. So, NBI got there. My fire investigator got there. Both of my investigators got there, and I called State Fire Marshal's office. We got the NBI crime scene unit down there. They started processing the vehicle. Got the coroner's office down there. They took custody of him, and they got him transported up to the crime lab. Had the vehicle towed, had it removed. Fire marshal's office report came in, and they could not detect any type of accelerant anywhere in the vehicle. And
now, what does that generally mean? I mean, is there any reason to think anything simply because that's the case?
Well, no, but something like this, you've got to work it as a homicide until you can prove that it's not. And even in the case where somebody commits suicide, you can't automatically walk in there and say, hey, this is a suicide right off the bat and shut off all the other investigative avenues.
You mean you can't just say it's a suicide because I say so?
No, you can't.
Okay.
We had a guest last week who had a coroner do that to him. So,
well, I hope they're able to maintain a good working relationship because it's going to be a long term for somebody.
It was a very old case. So
yeah,
luckily that
not.
person is
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
so when we're talking about accelerants, I did a brief stint while I was investigating. It was not my cup of tea being a fire investigator. But I did learn enough during that time. You can just about pinpoint where a fire originates at. This got to do with the burn patterns, how high the burn patterns and the char marks go. But with this particular case, you could tell that this was a hot fire, and it got hot quick. And we were convinced that somebody had doused it down with a mixture of gasoline and diesel or kerosene or something like that. But fire marshal's report said no accelerant detected. And we got to thinking about that. Well, what are your plastics and your fibers on like your floor mats made out of? They're made out of petroleum byproducts. So basically, the entire car is an accelerant in itself. We did locate the remnants of a handgun in the car. Can't even really tell what it is. It's just a slide in a barrel, and it's all melted together. The crime lab couldn't even process that.
Now, once you have gotten, once the coroner or the medical examiner has looked at him, what can you tell from his body?
They couldn't tell anything. Their cause of death came back being cause and manner of death both being undetermined.
Right.
So, before I get off on that, I want to hit back on one of the other things that the wife had, one of the things that she was doing preceding him going missing. There would be several people that would come up missing, or whether it be a child or an older person, what have you, and she would go share the silver alert or the amber alert. And there was one, I mean, this went on for roughly 2 or 3 months, beginning in like April, before he came up missing in August. And then one day, all of a sudden, she just quit. And there was one of them that just really, really struck a nerve with me, because it was basically the same thing. Look, y'all, we had people calling from all over the place. And this is what I couldn't make the families understand this. I couldn't make the nosy people that want to know understand this. If you're calling me to talk to me on the telephone, you're taking me away from this case. And you're just putting that much more time in between what I've got going on here today, working on it, and actually getting it solved. If you want me to sit here and listen to you fuss because you don't think I'm doing enough, you know what? Save your time, save your dime. Call me back after we find him. I'll listen to you till the cows come home then. But this was like dispatch was getting 30 calls a day.
Right.
So finally, I told him, I said, you know what? Unless it's somebody that's got some information, don't even write their name and phone number down. I got to the point with the family, and this is something that I have maintained ever since then. If you've got, especially in the most recent case, and
yeah,
you know, again, that's another story for another night, and I think that's going to be a story that everybody would like to hear. You pick one person from the family that you can talk to,
yeah,
and you let that one person tell everybody else what they want them to know.
mm-hmm.
That saves you a lot of grief in the long run. All these gray hairs weren't here until about this time last year.
Right.
So, I've got ahead of myself again. Anyway, this was the post that I'd started talking about, and this was going along with what she was saying, and the church down there in Macomb was saying, and a lot of these people from Illinois and California and Maine and everywhere else that were calling down there, just saying rude and nasty things to the dispatchers who don't have a clue what's going on, other than they know he's missing and we're busting our tails trying to find him.
Right.
This was from Hattiesburg. Young boy missing, family is getting no help from local PD. And I said, you know, all this has got to be a smoke and mirror game. I told my investigator, I said, she killed him. I know she did. You'll never convince me otherwise. However,
and this is where it turns. There's a however.
This is where it starts flipping.
Right.
I can know something and you can know something, but it doesn't matter what we know. It's what we can prove. It doesn't matter what we think. It's what the evidence can show. This particular case, and you know, even the family brought this up, and this was a concern for me, and I checked, and there was nothing. There was a large woods fire, huge woods fire. Mm-hmm. And you would have thought that the fire department would have got paged out to it, but I guess if it's in the middle of the night when everybody's at home in the bed asleep because they're getting ready to go to work, and it kind of dies out, or it rains and puts it out, and it's off down a dead-end split off of another dead-end road that nobody even lives on, that, to be honest with you, the county probably should have killed that road years ago. Mm-hmm. There's nothing on it. We don't have any evidence we don't even have circumstantial evidence in this case to prove a homicide case. Mm-hmm. So the car burned up. You couldn't do anything with OnStar to locate it. The phone bill wasn't paid and the phone burned up, so you still couldn't do anything to locate it. And I think, if I recollect hearing the wife tell it, whenever they would talk, he would get somewhere where he could get a Wi-Fi connection, and that's how they would communicate. So I
was wondering how they were using the phone, but typically, it's Wi-Fi.
He had actually gone home while she was at the doctor that day, and he called her, and you know, there were some people in the area told us some different stuff other than what the wife said, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But the recoverable remains, without getting too graphic, they were very limited, and the medical examiner's office they were not able to tell anything. Like I said, they ruled the cause of death as being undetermined and the manner of death as being undetermined. Now, I brought up the fact that we recovered a handgun. We did recover 2 spent shell casings. One of those was most definitely fired. It had the firing pin indent in the primer. The second one, and I don't know how many of our listeners and watchers realize that Teresa was in the volunteer fire department at one time, but why don't you share with us what happens in a house fire whenever the bullets start really getting hot?
Well, the shell casings pop. So it's like you'll show up at a house fire where there's a lot of ammo, and a lot of people are afraid because they hear what sounds like gunshots. It's really just the casings popping. It's like they expand out instead of forward.
Well, this one, we call it a cook-off. We think that it came out of the magazine of the gun. We don't know. We didn't find a magazine. We found 2 shell casings, a slide and a barrel, and that's it. There was a bullet lodged in the upper right A-pillar, and for those that don't realize what that is, where the frame on the body of the vehicle comes down between the door and the windshield, that frame, that's your A-pillar. We found one projectile, and it was in pieces, lodged in it. And the other bullet, other shell casing, it did not have a projectile in it. And if it was a firing pin strike on it, it was so light you could not tell it to the naked eye. Now, am I going to rule out homicide at this point? Anything's possible.
Right. It seems like it'd be hard to, given some of the inaccuracies and whatnot in some of the stories, but still you're looking for evidence that you don't have.
That's right. On the other hand, there's 2 things that we can't rule out. We can't rule out suicide. We cannot rule out the fact that he could have gone into a diabetic coma. I mean, there just wasn't enough of him left to be able to make those determinations. So if the car was not doused in accelerant, how did the car catch on fire? You've probably got about 40 or 50 little comments down there right about now. Are we rolling live, or is this?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, you can see the comments up there on the monitors.
Okay,
I think mostly it's people tagging each
attention.
other. Yeah.
So how'd the car catch on fire? I know somebody's asked that. It's probably been multiple people asked that. The car, from where it left the roadway, it probably wasn't maybe 15 or 20 feet. And it wasn't a deep embankment or anything. There was a terrace row or a slight embankment, and the car had run up on it, and it's like it got lodged on it. And it was really thick with pine straw and leaves. At any rate, what I think, I can't prove it, and I will not bet my life or the farm on it. What I think happened was that maybe when his body relaxed, he hit the accelerator and revved his RPMs on his engine up. That caused the undercarriage, exhaust pipe, catalytic converter, so forth, so on, to heat up rather rapidly, and it set the debris up under the car on fire, and the car, after that point. Again, I'm not a fire investigator. I don't pretend to be a fire investigator, but the state fire marshal's office doesn't know what happened, and my fire investigator doesn't know what happened. And I think that's about the most common sense thing that we can come up with at this point. So there's one other little trick. And for the sake of not educating somebody on how to commit a crime and get away with it, I'm not going to go into detail about it.
Sure.
But there was one other little trick that we used, and we were able to tell that from roughly August the 14th to the time that the car was found, there's one little factor that could have changed the whole thing, but we do not have any reason to believe at all anybody went back there. We can talk about that off the record.
Sure.
But it's if you want to sit there and think about it long enough, it's pretty simple to figure out. But this has been a case that it had us stumped from the very beginning.
Sure.
There were people that were calling from all over the place. They saw Greg. I can't tell you how many times I stopped in the middle of what I was doing to go chase down a blue Chevy Cruze, just knowing it was going to be him. And it was like that with everybody at the department, everybody with the town police department too, for a while.
Now, did you ever account for both cars? I mean, you had the one that he was found in. What about the other one?
The other car's at the house today.
Okay, gotcha.
So let's shift conversation for a few minutes.
Okay.
Let's go back out to the family home and the people in the area. So they tried to say that one of the uncles said that he shot him and took him off in the woods and burned him up, set him on fire, and then buried him. Well, anything's possible, but I'm going to say that's just not likely at all. And I'm going to tell you why. This uncle will tell you if he did something. He told me 20 years ago that if so-and-so came back to his house, he was going to shoot him. And that night, we were putting him in jail because so-and-so, he didn't make it quite to his house, but they ran across one another, and he shot him.
He's a man of his word.
Yeah.
If he tells you he's going to do something, he's going to do it. But he told me, he said, no. He said, I was sitting out on the porch. He said, and him and her mama was all over there, and them two women were raising all kind of hell at him. And he walked out of the house, and he put a bag on the back floorboard of that car. And he got in that car, and he cranked it up, and he backed it out from underneath that carport. And he went towards the highway, and I hadn't seen him since. I said, well, that's good information to know. That's real good information to know.
I was wondering if I know you said that the wife, they were living in the house that she grew up in.
Right.
But I think it's important to note that the family that they were living around is her family.
That's correct.
And not his family. So
That's
I was
correct.
curious to know, did he have family that was reaching out and?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I haven't talked to his brother. It's probably been 2 or 3 months, but he'll call me occasionally, if for nothing else, just to check on me. And that's actually how we did confirm his identity. Was I met with his brother and got a DNA sample from him and sent it to the crime lab. But back on the deal at the house that night, the neighbor right down the road that lives right beside the uncle, he said, she's saying he left at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever time she's saying he left. She's lying because at 6 o'clock, he was in the Ford Expedition pulling out of the driveway in work clothes with a trailer behind the vehicle and a lawnmower going to cut a yard.
Wow.
So
what do you do with that?
There ain't nothing you can do with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have anything tying her to it.
Mm-hmm.
But on the same token, more than likely, if I went missing, my wife would probably wait about a week or so. She'd be kind of enjoying the break. But from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or whatever time she's claiming he went missing to 1:20 in the morning, that's not even 12 hours. That's kind of jumping the gun a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah.
There would have to be something else that would lead you to believe that this was not normal. This was out of the normal, because not everyone, but I am telling you that there is no 24-hour waiting period.
No, it is
to
not.
report someone missing.
It
so if
is
law
not.
enforcement tells you that, they're wrong. But in order to actually report an adult missing, you want to be able to show that there's something. Yes,
Right.
there's a medical condition, mental health, or that there was something that happened that you feel means that they are in danger, or like to themselves, or there's got to be something other than
I will totally agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, the fact that she reported him missing in the first place is like, why? Why did you report him missing? What led you to believe that he was actually missing and not just y'all had an argument and he left? And then why the timing that you reported it? Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So at this point, what are you left with? Like, where does the case stand now?
At this particular point, we have exhausted every single avenue that we've got to try to prove that this case is a homicide. And, the state medical examiner's office has said they can't even tell what it is.
Sure. So at this point, in order to come forward with, we decided it's a homicide, you would actually have to have some kind of video evidence almost. Something
and, that's something else. They had ring cameras up on the outside of the house.
Yeah.
The night that he went missing, and we went over there and we executed a search warrant. After we figured out they had ring cameras, and we took their Wi-Fi device, their modem, we took all their cell phones and sat in other iPads, laptops, whatever. We thought it might have something on it. We took it. Nothing. The ring camera wasn't even working.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Most frustrating thing. They're just for looks.
Yeah. Well, okay. So at this point, I guess we would ask if you have any knowledge of this case that you want to share. Feel free to contact the Lawrence County Sheriff's Office. You can inbox Amanda or I or Nicole if you want to. You can inbox the sheriff. Okay, we know that at this point it's just kind of one of those, like, we never may know what happened here.
We may not.
Yeah. So do you have any parting thoughts, anything we wouldn't know to ask you about?
I can't think anything.
Okay. Well, I know this has been a weird year for you with this case, and it's brought a lot of drama, and it's made for a lot of talk on social media, and a lot of times cases will do that. But yeah, I knew that when we talked about doing this, that would be something that you'd be happy to finally just be able to kind of air it out. So I also want to say hello to former Brookhaven Police Chief Bobby Bell is in the comments, as well as, where is Paul now? Paul Ray, how do you say his last name?
Rajon.
Rajon? Okay.
I hadn't heard from him
Sorry,
in a
Paul.
while.
Yeah, well, he's up there too in the comments. Amanda, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think that people don't realize that, yes, the families have to live without an answer, but law enforcement does too. Like, you work so long on a case, and then for it to be left open like this, and that's exactly what it is. It is open, and a day from now, a week from now, a year from now, you might get something, and like, y'all have to follow up on it to prove or disprove. And so this is going to be like an ongoing case.
Yeah.
Kind of forever.
This is one that's
going
to
go.
go.
And that's actually what I told the family, they're about the time, or I told his brother about the time that we got the medical examiner's results back. I said, we're not going to close the case out. I said, but at this point, we just really don't have a whole lot that we can do with it. And it's like she said just a second ago. I get it. As law enforcement, we have to wear so many different hats. And people come to us with the strangest request. They've got all these problems, and we're supposed to be fix-it men and women. And there's some things that we can't fix. And there's a lot of issues, like somebody getting mad because child custody cases. Oh, that'll tie you up in one in a heartbeat. I can't enforce a chancery court order unless I've got a direct order from the judge to enforce that order. And people get upset about that. But the thing about it is we can't act out of the scope of our duties. And then on top of that, we want to know what happened just like you want to know what happened. And I get it. We may not have that. We may not have lived in the same house with this person and celebrated birthdays and holidays and this, that, and the other with them. But we're oftentimes just as let down and disappointed that we can't get the results that you want as what you are.
Right.
You know, people say all the time, "Oh, they didn't take my case serious." 99.9% of the time, we give it all we got. Now, occasionally there may be one that slips through the cracks, but those are few and far between. And this one, we shut down working a homicide of a United States Navy veteran to work this missing persons case. And we did nothing for 2 solid weeks but work on this missing person case. It was almost all hands on deck for 2 solid weeks, 7 days a week. And at some point, you get to where you're like, I've hit a brick wall. Do I run through it? Do I jump over it? Do I turn left? Do I turn right? And you're so exhausted and so exerted that you honestly don't know what to do. So a lot of times at that point, it's better just to back up just a little bit and punt again and watch where that football lands. In order to do that, you may have to give it a day or two, give it a break for a day or two. It's better to do that than it is to start messing stuff up.
That's right. Well, I think this is one that's going to go down in Lawrence County legend for a long time. You know, you have those cases that, you know, it's always been a question in several cases, you know, what happened? And we've covered some of them on this podcast. Annie Laurie Heron, Daphne told us some of these cases that we may never have an answer, and this is one of them. But we appreciate you being willing to talk to us about it.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny you brought the Annie Laurie Heron case up. I was little. I remember watching her picture be run across WLBT and then on Unsolved Mysteries. And I was actually fortunate enough. I started long enough ago that I was actually able to work with a couple of guys in some different places that were detectives on that case.
Yeah, we had one of the detectives on that case come talk to us on the podcast and learned a lot of things we didn't know. But again, you have those cases that you'll never forget because they never came to a conclusion.
And those types of cases haunt the investigator. They do. It's just like everybody watched Winnie the Pooh growing up, and if I were Eeyore, this and one other case that I can think of would be the black cloud that's always lurking over Eeyore. You know, you just can't get out from up under it. You want to know what happened, and you may not ever know what happened.
Well, and I'm glad that you shared this with us because that's kind of part of the reason that I wanted to start this podcast was to give law enforcement a chance to talk about the one they'll never let go of, and that's this for you. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making the drive. We really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Amanda, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure. I'll be here for a long stint while Nicole is
out of town
on vacation. Yeah.
Good for her.
Yes, I think she'll be on the next one, and then it's just me.
Yeah,
and you.
Right.
And
we'll make it happen just like we do.
Yeah.
So, okay, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening and watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. If you want to sponsor Investigation Homicide, you can contact one of us through Facebook, or you can find our email addresses probably online. People seem to do that a lot. We have merch. We have social media. Find us that way. And if you need a podcast, Daniel Anderson and Audio Alchemy are exactly where you need to come. They produce this podcast for us, and Daniel does a great job. So thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next week. Well, actually, we're taking next week off. Sorry. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Investigation Homicide.